Hey everyone, it's JT. Happy Wednesday. It's hump day. It's been a while since I've been live here doing a JT Talks job session, but I wanted to get on and spend 30 minutes with everyone talking about this big mistake that I'm seeing a lot of executives make, especially here on LinkedIn, but really overall when it comes to their career and their executive presence in particular. So executive presence, the definition of that is what people say about you when you're not in the room when it comes to your career. Pretty simple. Executive presence is how you come across to people and how they interpret your communication style, how they interpret your level of expertise, and something, the fancy term is called gravitas, your depth of knowledge, your gravitas. And so this is pretty important these days because thanks to a pandemic, our executive presence has gone completely online. And I have heard from so many people in high-level positions in HR telling me that they are having a very difficult time with their executives who do not have good executive presence online. So what do I mean by that? Well, I don't know. You all can name them. You can all think of an executive you've known in the past that their presence came from them being in person. They had this sort of command and control style to them. They could come into a room and, you could feel everybody tense up a little because that executive was in the room. That's executive presence. That's when somebody has authority. But the pandemic made us all part of the Brady Bunch. And some of you might not remember the Brady Bunch show, but the Brady Bunch, the commercial for the show, they were all in little boxes, right? Little boxes. So think of like game shows where all the contestants or all the celebrities are in boxes. That's essentially Zoom meetings. So many executives went from having in-person presence and commanding attention and respect to being in a little box. And in that moment, really lost their presence. Don't know how to convey their authority, their gravitas, and it's hurting them. More importantly, there's a whole new generation that is looking at leadership and saying, I want more. Millennials and Gen Z, study after study shows this. If you don't believe me, go to Gallup, very well-known site, very well-known resource. They just came out with survey results. These individuals that will report to you as an executive, they want what they call authentic and transparent leadership. What that translates into, though, is that they want to be able to search you online and be able to take in your executive presence online and determine whether or not you are somebody they would trust. The reality is people want to work for interesting companies and interesting executives, interesting leaders. And if you don't have executive presence online, then when they go to search for you, they can't find out what they need to trust you. And you might think this is crazy because 10, 15 years ago, this didn't exist. It wasn't required, but it is required now. 110%. Over half the workforce is made up of millennials and Gen Z, and it's only going to get larger. They were raised on their phones. They were raised on social media. They are used to storytelling. They are used to having their attention held. This is how you, as an executive, will have to gain their trust and respect. And again, this huge mistake that I see people taking out of the pandemic is not realizing how important it has become to put your values and beliefs out there, share your expertise, be comfortable on video, be comfortable giving advice, and in fact, giving it away freely. We have executives that are so worried about making a mistake on things like LinkedIn that when they do actually put out content, it's so scrubbed so that they don't get any criticism that it's of no value. It's not interesting. It's not powerful. It's not captivating. So if you are an executive right now and you aren't creating content, if you aren't putting your thoughts and your ideas and your values and your beliefs and your expertise out there, you are hurting your career. And I'm going to give you some examples. I work privately with a group of executives on helping them build their influence. One executive literally got an email privately through LinkedIn out of the blue from a CEO to the point that she thought it must be a joke, but it wasn't. And it was the CEO asking if she would get on a call with her. And in that conversation, the CEO revealed that she had come across this person's content on LinkedIn, devoured it all, and realized that she was just the person that she needed to have a conversation with about a direction she was taking the company in and what they would need. Guess what? The CEO ended up offering her a job. I have another person looking to make a switch into a new company, into a very high, very visible leadership role. The CEO of that company said, I'm not sure I want to bring an outsider in for this very high level role. I'm not sure you're the right person because we usually like to home grow our executives and give them leadership roles. You don't have that internal credibility yet with our staff. So they're a very smart group. They probably wouldn't respect you enough. So they said, well, why don't you meet with some of the people that might report to you and we'll see what they think. He did. And one of these individuals, a millennial, went out and did what? Searched for him online and found some videos that he had done on YouTube and forwarded them to the CEO and said, yes, he knows what he's talking about. We'd report to him. He'd be okay. 2 examples. And these just happened in the last month. Just in the last month. There is a massive amount of opportunity out there for executives. If you want to get a new job, have executive recruiters calling you. If you want to build job security at your current company, think about it. If you have this awesome brand reputation out there, if your executive presence is known out there, do you think they want to lose you? No. So how do you want to get raises and promotions? By building your presence and making them not want somebody to steal you. If somebody does take you, you get to take that presence with you, right? It's an asset. Let's say you want to be invited to speak on panels in your industry or give, TED Talk style talks or, be on board seats. Lots of people would love to get paid to be on boards. These are all the kinds of things that in order to get those opportunities as an executive, you have to have presence. And it has to be online. And if you follow Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, and I'm sure many of you do, you know that he agrees with me on this. He's been talking about this forever and ever and ever. But you don't have to. I see so many people going, online. That's just for people that want to be, fancy influencers and sell stuff. No, it is not. It is for anybody at the executive level who wants to earn trust and respect. And as a result, get the opportunities they're looking for. If you do not, in 2021 and beyond, if you do not start to create online presence as an executive, people will wonder if you're not tech savvy enough to do it, right? People will wonder if there's just nothing interesting about you. People will wonder if you have something to hide. So this idea that executives should be elusive, I've heard that before. I've seen executives say to me, I don't fill out my whole LinkedIn profile because that makes me look desperate. I need to be elusive. That is so over with, so over with. I cannot even begin to tell you because the next generation doesn't buy that. Again, they think you're not tech savvy, nothing interesting about you. You've got something to hide. Really bad brand messages. So again, executive presence, hugely important. And I'm going to take some questions now around that. But before I do, you have probably all seen, I am teaching a class on this on Friday. It's a 2.5-hour live training with a workbook. If you can't attend live, we send you the recording. And I am mapping out for people the 4-step process that I have used consistently and I have taught to an exclusive group of executives and they've used and they've succeeded around this idea of building executive presence online. You need to understand your unique executive presence, what it is, how to pull it out of yourself, and how to put it out there in a way that feels safe. I get it. It's a scary idea, what I'm telling you all, but it is not open for discussion, folks. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And there is a way to do it. So if you're interested, I know my teammates are going to pop the link in the chat for you. It's going to be an amazing class. I've never taught this class before, and I likely won't teach it again, and you'll hear why on Friday. This is not something that I'm going to get on here regularly and talk about. It's not something I'm going to give away for free and promote because of something very special that we've been building for the last 2 years that is private, which you will hear about if you join this training. But I'm doing this training one time. I've had so many people as a result of the pandemic ask me about this, recognize how important this is, and ask for coaching. So I said, I'm going to do a class once, give people a workbook, and then they can run with it. So if you're interested, check out the link. It's $49 because this is seriously info packed, and seating is limited too, right? Because we're really trying to convey a lot. So if you're interested, grab the link. But now what I want to do is, again, take your questions around executive presence. This is a big deal, folks. This is one of the this is going to be that thing that if you don't do it now, a year or two from now, when you watch your executive career plateauing, when you see people younger than you coming up and beating you and you're saying, why? Because they have presence. I'm sorry, because they have followers, because they've built content and pushed it out there so people who knew what they were. This is going to age you right out of the executive space if you don't do it. I am not kidding you. So with that in mind, let me put on my glasses so I can actually read your questions, and let's take some questions around executive presence, shall we? Okay. Doug says, I'm not an executive, but I wish to be. How do I create executive presence? Okay. So, hey, Doug on LinkedIn, I love that you asked this question. You're the perfect person to be thinking about this now, because the way to get into the C-suite, the way to get into executive level roles, VP, director level, leading large groups of people, is being willing to put your knowledge out there. And people will say to me, but I don't have a lot of experience. But you have experience. And you have things that you've learned and you've grown, and you have values and beliefs that you now pursue that make you successful. So the way that you do it, and again, we'll teach it in the class, is you break down those things and then you create what we call a content tree. And a content tree is a map, like a mind map of things that you could talk about and be really articulate and create value. Now, something that you should know, a lot of people fear imposter syndrome. So they think, well, I can't do this until I'm a super successful executive, because if I do it now, then I'm going to look like an imposter. No, you don't have to be the most knowledgeable person, because there is no such thing. There are multiple people knowledgeable about multiple things. What you are looking to do is document or share what you've learned at this stage in your career, so that if it can help even one person out there, then it's made a difference. And the more you put this content out, you will find that a lot of people can relate to what you're saying and understand where you're coming from and have been through what you've been through. And this is how you get eyeballs on you and get people going, wow, Doug is so transparent. Doug is so authentic. Doug is willing to share his knowledge, his quote unquote gravitas, the fancy term. You start it now, Doug, because once you get in the habit of doing it, you don't think about it anymore. And I can vouch for that. I don't think about it anymore. When I realize there's something, and I have a whole strategy around knowing when I need to share something, and when that comes, when those pieces fall into place, it is very easy for me to execute. It's like riding a bike, and that can be that way for everybody. But you have to know how to do it first, and then you have to get in the habit of it. So Doug, now is the time. Get in the habit now. Build your following now, because your expertise is only going to grow, and you will end up in the C-suite. That's how you get there. You don't wait. You start now, and it helps you get there. Good question. Bridget says, I'm an executive. Do we hire younger marketing people? Well, you certainly can, Bridget. You absolutely can. I think that you're talking about hiring people who relate to a demographic, right? And they could come to that, but I don't think it necessarily has to be younger people. It has to be people who understand this concept. It has to be people who know that when a C-suite member is putting themselves out there, it is powerful and effective in how to do that. So I would be more concerned about you hiring somebody who knows how to do that correctly, so that you are interesting and you are relevant but you're also sending the right message. Remember I said earlier, executive presence is your unique way of kind of putting your brand out there. You need to know what that is. That person needs to know how to pull that out of you and then translate it out. So I don't think age is as much a concern as whether or not they get how important this is and know how to do it successfully. Leonie says, how is executive defined today? I'm a director of career development and don't consider executive, but I know and do more than my AVP. How do I move past that? Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Leonie. So I think you are an executive, not in title, but in skill set. And if you want to move past that, you do it by starting to create content. If you're a director of career development, why should I trust you? How do I know you know what you're talking about? What are you doing online to prove that to me? That's really, really important. You got to get that out there. And you've got to get it out there in a way that the right audience, whoever you're looking to attract and gain the respect of, can relate to. And that's important because if you are too serious, for example, and then they're not going to relate to you, your personality has to come out. The way that you currently get people to trust and respect you and take your advice, what that is has to come out and translate out online. And when you do that, you will raise yourself up. And here's a great example. This is how you literally could become an AVP someplace else. Some other place could cherry pick you and pull you over because you have this presence. It's how they get to know you. I'm just going to give you an example. How many of you feel in the comments, you can say yes or no, feel like you followed me for a while and you feel like you know me? You feel like you know me. Hopefully you feel that way because of the amount of content I put out and how I really try to be me. I'm not any different when I'm in person than when I'm here with you. And that took a lot of understanding about who I am and what that's like and how to convey that. So that's why this is so vital these days, folks. Again, we live in a Zoom world, in a Brady Bunch world, right? Hollywood Squares, if you want to call it that. And you need to know how to project, but be authentic in the process. Okay, Demetrius is asking, I struggle with getting out of my comfort zone in meetings with upper level managers. What techniques can I use to express myself better and gain that confidence in this new role I've been tasked with? Okay, so Demetrius, let's talk about executive presence here. So you've been given a new role, which means they identified you as a problem solver, pain reliever of something specific. So one thing I would be doing is be creating content around that and sharing ideas around that, because one of the advantages of building online executive presence is that you have to step back and think about these things. You're essentially teaching it to an audience. And we all know that we learn something better and we become better at it when we have to teach others. So that's one of the most powerful reasons to do this. Once you do that, you're going to get more comfortable because you're going to see positive reactions from people and know these thoughts and these ideas that you have, they're going to get validated. So that's going to give you confidence in those meetings. The other thing you want to do separate from this is that anytime you're brought in at the executive level, you need an executive ally. So somebody in that room that you can reach out to and say, when I'm in those meetings, because I'm new to the group, I'm not always comfortable just speaking up. Would you be okay with inviting me to speak or asking me to comment at some point in the session so that I can get myself into the conversation? It's almost like, you ever been on a roundabout with a car? It's really hard to get on a roundabout because the cars are going around really fast. So you feel like you're slowing down to get in there. Same thing. You're not really sure how to get into the conversation. One of the best ways is to have somebody clear the way for you or invite you to join the conversation. You do that through an executive ally. And this is what executives do. They ally up, right? And they support each other and they promote each other, right? You talk about them, they talk about you, and this is how you do it, that credibility factor. Let's see. I hope I say this right. Scrichinia? I hope I say that right. I know it's hard. Is there an executive community you can be associated with? How do you show you're interested in executive roles? How to help global companies set up global technology centers from India? So this is the thing about executive leadership. It's a tight-knit group because there aren't thousands of positions. This is again why presence, the answer here is you building your presence. And let me give you a super example. Really tight-knit group of executives, 4 or 5 of them at a company that you want to work at. You don't know any of them, but you know about a problem that they're probably trying to deal with in the company, and you've got some knowledge around that. So you put together either a quick video sharing your 2 cents or a quick post on LinkedIn outlining your idea about how it gets dealt with. And you ask that person to connect. You ask somebody on the executive team to connect, and you say, can we connect? I wanted to ask a question about this aspect of the business or whatever. And you get them to connect with you. And when they connect, you then send them your content and you say, I was thinking of you all. I'm guessing you might be experiencing this challenge or this problem, and I actually talked about it here. I thought it might be helpful. So you're creating value and sending it along. And those executives have been behind closed doors ruminating on that problem and thinking about where they're going to come up with the answers, and it's so difficult. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, this really talented individual messages and said, I wonder if you've been grappling with this question behind closed doors and having this problem. And if so, I just wanted to send this idea or this thought or something that I've seen, whatever it is, right? And instantly, it's like you've brought yourself into the conversation. And more importantly, you've gained credibility with them because they're going, wow, he or she gets us, gets what's going on. I've had this happen multiple times. There's a hidden job market out there. Hidden job market is companies are going, I think we need this kind of person. I think we need to hire and start this division. Those jobs don't get posted publicly. It takes them time to figure out what they're looking for in a candidate. So they're not just going to post a job. And one of the ways they figure that out is by having a conversation with somebody who knows what they're talking about. So when you go and propose that, and all of a sudden they're having a conversation with you, they're saying, wow, we're thinking about hiring for this job. You should come in and interview. And this is how people get hired all the time. They get jobs that were never posted because they inserted themselves into the conversation using their online executive presence. Does that make sense to everybody? Really, really important to understand that. Can I hire someone to create my executive presence for me, like an assistant? There are agencies in New York, LA, Boston, big cities, where you can pay top dollar to have your presence created. It's expensive, and I'm not really sure how much you're going to get out of it. I think most of the time when you outsource your executive presence, it's because you're a CEO of a big company and they've got an entire PR budget. I mean, let's face it. Think of all the big CEOs that and you see stuff about them all the time online. There's a whole team that's getting paid to create their presence. The majority of us do not have the budget to do that. If your company does, that's awesome. But most of us have to learn to do it ourselves. And honestly, I think it's better for you to initially learn how to do it yourself so that you truly understand and are sure that what's being put out is authentic, is you. And then once you learn it, as I've said, this is the thing. Most people they think they don't want to be bothered with it. They want to just kind of outsource it. They don't want to deal with it. It's not as hard as you think. You just need it broken down in a way where you're learning and all of a sudden you're not thinking about it anymore and you're doing it. It's like any habit. If you work it daily, a little bit at a time, you will get there. So I wouldn't advise it because most people don't have the budget to have it done correctly. You're better off doing it yourself. Now, can you hire an admin or an assistant to do like the social posting once you've developed the strategy and know what you want to do? Sure. That's totally cost effective and doable. But as far as the actual piece of it, of figuring it out and structuring it, you're going to want to do it. And this leads into the next question we're getting. Is creating an executive presence a time-consuming process? Well, here's the thing. In the 2.5-hour class that I'm doing Friday live, I'm going to walk you through the 4 steps of 1, determining what your executive presence is, choosing, what you want to present about yourself, because there's a lot of things you can present, but what you have to do is bring the brand messaging in and target it. 2, how do you translate that? I'm going to show you how you put your executive presence on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile and in introduction letters. So we're going to show you what that looks like. And then we're going to talk about how to choose which platform to focus on to build out your executive presence, and then what you can do on that. So it's not time consuming in the long run, but like anything, there's a learning curve. And you're going to want to learn how to do this correctly. And the sooner you learn that, then the less time it takes you later on. So yes, some learning on the front end, on the back end, pretty easy. Not to mention, once you figure this out, once, the executives I've worked with, once they get it, they love it. And they want to do more and more of it. They want to free up time to create content because they realize how much they're learning, growing. It inspires them. It gets their brain on fire. It's a very important thing to do. And you will end up loving it. You will get addicted once you figure it out. Jane is asking, is the content map you mentioned going to be covered on Friday? I'm anxious but ready to jump in, sharing content online and need structure. Yes, Jane. So I'm going to teach you what's called content mapping or a content tree. And we break down how to figure that out, because it's very important that when you start building your executive presence, that you're not all over the place. A huge mistake I see, biggest mistake, is people don't do it at all. You're literally killing your executive career if you're not doing online presence. But the ones that do engage, they tend to give up because they don't do it right, and they're all over the board. Like the messaging, think about it, your feed needs to have synergy. Because if I go over there and start consuming content from you, it's like a breadcrumb effect. I'm going to want to consume lots of pieces of content. And thematically, you need to be teaching me something. And so if you aren't doing that by tying your content together, then you're not going to get the traction that you need. And again, that's a mistake that I see a lot of executives make once they get into it. Awesome. Great questions today. All right. Do I have everybody thinking about executive presence? I hope so. I hope you decide to join me on Friday for this training. It's going to be really, really impactful. Again, I'm not going to do this probably ever after this, because as you'll learn on Friday at the end of it, we are launching something very private, very exclusive in Work It Daily for executives, and I'll be working with them. So if you want to join and learn more about that too, you should come. But for no other reason, if you want to really understand the 4 steps and then go out and do it on your own, trust me, folks, this is the 2021 thing you must do to advance your career if you're an executive. If you want to be a leader, if you want to be in the C-suite someday, you have to understand how to do this. And don't just take it from me. Go watch Gary Vee. He's telling people that every single day. But I think what we're doing differently here is that we understand that executives need structure and need a way to break this down and do this safely and consistently. And I think that's where this is different than what you hear from Gary. Gary's right, but we're going to show you how to actually do it. So I hope you decide to join us. I promise you it's going to be the best $50 you've ever spent on your executive career. That much I can promise you. But if not, thank you for stopping by today. At the very least, please let me know in the chat if I've got you understanding this and your big takeaway. Did you take away something good today? I hope so. And I do hope I see a bunch of you on Friday. All right. Okay, everyone. Thank you again for your time. I'll see you soon.